Things were rough all over, all right. All over the east side. Didn't seem right to me. I know, Two-Bit said with a good-natured grin. Chips are always down when it's our turn, but that's the way things are. Like it or lump it. Cherry and Marcia didn't say anything. I guess they didn't know what to say. We'd forgotten they were there. Then the blue Mustang was coming down the street again, more slowly. Well, Cherry said resignedly, they spotted us. The Mustang came to a halt beside us, and the two boys in the front seat got out. They were socias, all right. One had on a white shirt and a Madra ski jacket, the other a light yellow shirt and a wine-colored sweater. I looked at their clothes and I realized for the first time that evening that all I had on was a pair of jeans and Soda's old navy sweatshirt with the sleeves cut short. I swallowed. Two-Bit started to tuck in his shirt tail but stopped himself in time. He just flipped up the collar of his black leather jacket and lit a cigarette. Socias didn't even seem to notice us. Cherry, Marcia, listen to us, the handsome black-haired Socia with the dark sweater began. Johnny was breathing heavily and I noticed he was staring at the Socia's hand. He was wearing 3 heavy rings. I looked quickly at Johnny, an idea dawning on me. I remembered that it was a blue Mustang that had pulled up beside the vacant lot and that Johnny's face had been cut up by someone wearing rings. The Socia's voice broke into my thoughts. Just because we got a little drunk last time. Cherry looked mad. A little? You call reeling and passing out in the street a little? Bob, I told you, I'm never going out with you while you're drinking, and I mean it. Too many things could happen while you're drunk. It's me or the booze. The other Soc, a tall guy with a semi-beetle haircut, turned to Marcia. Baby, you know we don't get drunk very often. When she only gave him a cold stare, he got angry. And even if you are mad at us, that's no reason to go walking the streets with these bums. Two-Bit took a long drag on his cigarette. Johnny slouched and hooked his thumbs in his pockets, and I stiffened. We can look meaner than anything when we want to. Looking tough comes in handy. Two-Bit put his elbows on Johnny's shoulder. Who you callin' bums? Listen, greasers, we got 4 more of us in the back seat. Then pity the back seat, Two-Bit said to the sky. If you're looking for a fight, Two-Bit cocked an eyebrow, but it only made him look more cool. You mean if I'm looking for a good jumping, you outnumber us, you'll give it to us? Well, he snatched up an empty bottle, busted off the end and gave it to me, and then reached in his back pocket and flipped out his switchblade. Try it, pal. No, Cherry cried. Stop it. She looked at Bob. We'll ride home with you. Just wait a minute. Why? Two-Bit demanded. We ain't scared of him. Cherry shuddered. I can't stand fights. I can't stand them. I pulled her to one side. I couldn't use this, I said, dropping the pop bottle. I couldn't ever cut anyone. I had to tell her that because I'd seen her eyes when Two-Bit flicked out his switch. I know, she said quietly, but we'd better go with them, Pony Boy. I mean, if I see you in the hall at school or someplace and I don't say hi, well, it's not personal or anything, but... Yeah, I know, I said. We couldn't let our parents see us with you is all. You're a nice boy and everything. It's okay, I said, wishing I was dead and buried somewhere. Or at least I had on a decent shirt. We aren't in the same class. Just don't forget that some of us watch the sunset, too. She looked at me quickly. I could fall in love with Dallas Winston, she said. I hope I never see him again, or I will. She left me standing there with my mouth dropped open and the blue Mustang vroomed off. We walked on home mostly in silence. I wanted to ask Johnny if those were the same Socias that had beat him up, but I didn't mention it. Johnny never talked about it, and we never said anything. Well, those were 2 good-looking girls if I ever saw any. Two-Bit yawned, and we sat down on the curb of the vacant lot. He took a piece of paper out of his pocket and tore it up. What's that? Marcia's number? Probably a phony one. I must have been out of my mind to ask for it. I think I'm a little soused. So he had been drinking. Two-Bit was smart. He knew the score. Y'all going home, he asked. Not right now, I said. I wanted to have another smoke and watch the stars. I had to be in by 12, but I thought I had plenty of time. I don't know why I handed you that busted bottle, Two-Bit said, getting to his feet. You'd never use it. Maybe I would have, I said. Where you headed? I'm going to play a little snooker and hunt up a poker game. Maybe get rip-roaring drunk. I don't know. See y'all tomorrow. Johnny and I stretched out on our backs and then looked up at the stars. I was freezing. It was a cold night and all I had was that sweatshirt, but I could watch stars in sub-zero weather. I saw Johnny's cigarette glowing in the dark and I wondered vaguely what it was like inside a burning ember. It's because we're greasers, Johnny said, and I knew he was talking about Cherry. We could have hurt her reputation. I reckon, I said, wondering if I ought to tell Johnny what she had said about Dallas. Man, that was a tough car. Mustangs are tough. Big-time Socias, all right, I said, a nervous bitterness growing inside me. It wasn't fair for the Socias to have everything. We were as good as they were. It wasn't our fault we were greasers. I couldn't just take it or leave it like Two-Bit, or ignore it and love life anyway like Soda Pop, or harden myself beyond caring like Dally, or actually enjoy it like Tim Shepard. I felt the tension growing inside of me, and I knew something had to happen or I would explode. I can't take much more. Johnny spoke my own feelings. I'll kill myself or something. Don't, I said, sitting up in alarm. You can't kill yourself, Johnny. Well, I won't, but I gotta do something. It seems like there's gotta be some place without greasers or socias, with just people, plain, ordinary people. Out of the big towns, I said, lying back down. In the country. In the country. I loved the country. I wanted to be out of towns and away from excitement. I only wanted to lie on my back under a tree and read a book or draw a picture and not worry about being jumped or carrying a blade or ending up married to some scatterbrained broad with no sense. The country would be like that, I thought dreamily. I'd have a yeller cur dog like I used to, and Soda Pop could get Mickey Mouse back and ride in all the rodeos he wanted to, and Derry would lose that cold, hard look and be like he used to 8 months ago before Mom and Dad were killed. Since I was dreaming, I brought Mom and Dad back to life. Mom could bake some more chocolate cakes, and Dad would drive the pickup out early to feed the cattle. He'd slap Derry on the back and tell him he was getting to be a man, a regular chip off the old block, and they'd be as close as they used to be. Maybe Johnny could come and live with us, and the gang could come out on weekends, and maybe Dallas would see that there was some good in the world after all. And Mom would talk to him and make him grin in spite of himself. You got quite a mom, Dally used to say. She knows the score. She could talk to Dallas and kept him from getting into a lot of trouble. My mother was golden and beautiful. Pony boy! Johnny was shaking me. Hey, Pony, wake up! I sat up shivering. The stars had moved. Glory, what time is it? I don't know. I went to sleep too, listening to you rattle on and on. You better get home. I think I'll stay all night out here. Johnny's parents didn't care if he came home or not. Okay, I yawned. Gosh, but it was cold. If you get cold or something, come on over to our house. Okay. I ran home, trembling at the thought of facing Derry. The porch light was on. Maybe they were asleep and I could sneak in, I thought. I peeked in the window. Soda Pop was stretched out on the sofa, sound asleep, but Derry was in the armchair under the lamp reading the newspaper. I gulped and opened the door softly. Derry looked up from his paper. He was on his feet in a second. I stood there, chewing on my fingernail. Where the heck have you been? Do you know what time it is? He was madder than I'd seen him in a long time. I shook my head wordlessly. Well, it's 2 a.m, kiddo. Another hour and I would have had the police out after you. Where were you, Pony boy? His voice was rising. Where in the almighty universe were you? It sounded dumb even to me when I stammered. I went to sleep in the lot. You what? He was shouting, and Soda Pop sat up and rubbed his eyes. Hey, Pony boy, he said sleepily. Where you been? I didn't mean to, I pleaded with Derry. I was talking to Johnny and we both dropped off. I reckon it never occurred to you that your brothers might be worrying their heads off and afraid to call the police because something like that could get you two thrown a boys' home so quick it'd make your head spin. And you were asleep in the lot? Pony boy, what on earth is the matter with you? Can't you use your head? You haven't even got a coat on. I felt hot tears of anger and frustration rising. I said I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to, Derry shouted, and I almost shook. I didn't think. I forgot. That's all I hear out of you. Can't you think of anything? Derry, Soda Pop began, but Derry turned on him. You keep your trap shut. I'm sick and tired of hearing you stick up for him. He should never yell at Soda. Nobody should ever holler at my brother. I exploded. You don't yell at him, I shouted. Derry wheeled around and slapped me so hard that it knocked me against the door. Suddenly it was deathly quiet. We had all frozen. Nobody in my family had ever hit me. Nobody. Soda was wide-eyed. Derry looked at the palm of his hand where it had turned red and then looked back at me. His eyes were huge. Pony boy. I turned and I ran out the door and down the street as fast as I could. Derry screamed, Pony, I didn't mean to! But I was at the lot by then and I pretended I couldn't hear. I was running away. It was plain to me that Derry didn't want me around and I wouldn't stay if he did. He wasn't ever going to hit me again. Johnny, I called and started when he rolled over and jumped up almost under my feet. Come on, Johnny, we're running away. Johnny asked no questions. We ran for several blocks until we were out of breath, and then we walked. I was crying by then. I finally just sat down on the curb and cried, burying my face in my arms. Johnny sat down beside me, one hand on my shoulder. Easy, Pony boy, he said softly. We'll be okay. I finally calmed down and I wiped my eyes on my bare arm. My breathing was coming in quivering sobs. Got a cigarette? He handed me one and struck a match. Johnny, I'm scared. Well, don't be. You're scaring me. What happened? I never seen you bawl like that. I don't very often. It was Derry. He hit me. I don't know what happened, but I couldn't take him hollering at me and hitting me too. I don't know. Sometimes we get along okay, and then all of a sudden he blows up on me or else is nagging at me all the time. He didn't used to be like that. We used to get along okay before Mom and Dad died. Now he just can't stand me. I think I like it better when the old man's hitting me, Johnny sighed. At least I know he knows who I am. I walk in that house and nobody says anything. I walk out and nobody says anything. I stay away all night and nobody notices. At least you got soda. I ain't got nobody. Shoot, I said, startled out of my misery. You got the whole gang. Dolly didn't slug you tonight because you're the pet. I mean, golly, Johnny, you got the whole gang. It ain't the same as having your own folks care about you, Johnny said simply. It just ain't the same. I was beginning to relax and wonder if running away was such a great idea. I was sleepy and freezing to death, and I wanted to be home in bed, safe and warm under the covers with Soda's arm across me. I decided I would go home and just not speak to Derry. It was my house as much as Derry's, and if he wanted to pretend I wasn't alive, that was just fine with me. He couldn't stop me from living in my own house. Let's walk to the park and back, and then maybe I'll be cooled off enough to go home. Okay, Johnny said easily. Okay. Things gotta get better, I figured. They couldn't get worse. I was wrong.